Spencer.
Yeah. Randy.
Tom Rudliff.
Andrew Holt.
Josh.
Brian Wagner for the.
And
Sue Mittendorf.
From Lowell Housing.
Affordable housing.
Okay, super. Well, all right. Anybody have a chance to look at the minutes of the last meeting?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Now I read it.
Okay, so I do have a couple of questions. One is just a question, Brian. In the March meeting, there was number 3 is approval of minutes, and there was Tom's comment, and my comment, and other things that were supposed to be addressed in these minutes. And I don't see how they are. Tom's point was that he was both, I mean, he's a talented guy, but he was present and absent. And that got fixed.
Tom Houdini Rudliff.
He was kinda here.
So that I noticed is addressed. But these other things were not addressed. There were places where they could have been addressed. And so I just wonder, my question is really, what happens when there are issues that we bring up about the minutes and they are supposed to be incorporated in the revised minutes, but they don't show up?
Are you saying that the minutes as revised are incorrect?
I'm saying they're incomplete.
No, because the recording of the meeting are the official minutes for the meeting, and those are always available. The written minutes have a very low hurdle for completeness, and that is roll, recording of votes, and time
Okay.
of adjournment.
Okay, so when
everything
we,
else is
okay, all right. So then the only other thing I'd like to say is 6B, it says staff reviewed the status of the review. I think it should say staff reviewed the status of the survey.
And this is for
March 6th.
March.
And the other thing is in 7A, it says a discussion followed about how the EDC can support the plan, and I think the word the is missing between support and plan.
And that was
7A.
Okay, I will. So,
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
just to be clear, are we accepting March and April's or just April's? Because there's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them in here.
March and April.
however you want.
Well, we have,
Was March not available last meeting?
yes,
Okay.
March was not available.
Okay, clear. I was at the March meeting, so
Yes.
I'll motion for the approve.
Second to approve the March minutes. All right. Any discussion? Okay. Look at 2 changes. Change the word to survey and add the plan. And we're good to go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. On to April.
So, I didn't read these carefully, but. Oh, yeah, I did. I guess I didn't have any comments on this because I did read this.
All right.
So, I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 2nd.
Second.
No.
Okay. Discussion.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Okay, item C is correspondence and public comment to the Rhode Island Commerce in support of the grant applications. There were 2 applications, one for the demolition of South School and the other for some planning engineering work for the surplus properties, I think, in general.
sentence, and he,
So, they're attached. Does anybody want to comment on them or any questions? Or my question would be, they've been sent, Brian?
I don't have any printed agendas. No, there's nothing to do. They're just there as
Reference?
information so that everybody has copies of what was approved and went out.
And what,
we apparently heard, or at least last week, I asked Jamie about it, and he said,
I have not heard anything else.
I did notice that we applied, the department applied for $600,000 to tear down the school, but the maximum is $105,000. So I don't think we'll get six. I don't think we'll get. I mean, we might not get anything, but we certainly won't get 600.
Right.
okay. Yeah, so these went in, everything else has been submitted, Brian, so it's waiting at this
Just
point?
a question. The Affordable Housing Committee is drafting a couple of letters as well, when they're available. But as I said, we have not heard anything back from the Commerce Rep.
And are these things, do those things happen quickly, or?
There's nothing. I looked on the website, and there's nothing that says anything about when the.
Yeah, there's no timeline, and a lot of it is going to wind up being dictated by the number of applications they get and the quality of the applications,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons why I believe Jamie asked for $600,000, because if you get a bunch of, half-baked grant applications in there that are projects that may not show any results anytime soon, it starts to look good because, when the building comes down, you can show a definite amount of progress on the project. So
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
good. Nice job there, Sue.
The one question is just more, hopefully don't leave me out, but my name's not on the list
Which list?
for the 2 notes that were sent out.
In the letterhead?
Top right. Yep.
Oh, sorry about that. Josh.
That's
I'll
it.
blame Brian.
Blame me.
Pass me down your thing, son. Doodle.
He knows.
Can see it? Can you, if you,
Letters?
yeah.
Simply because you weren't there to Bill passed a motion. Right?
Oh, that could be. Could be.
No,
going there.
that's
No,
my
just-
It's letterhead, right? Oh, right. Anything further on that thing? For the whole business, the good old Wakefield Elementary School survey.
The town council expressed interest in seeing it.
Well, so, why don't you give, you were there and you were there to explain
see
what
they were-
happened.
There was
We,
very apprehensive about having a survey attached to the idea of a school. They want the community connecting the idea of the school becoming anything but a which was I thought having information about some sort of community business center would be good. They're very they don't want to jeopardize the opinion of the community that for the school to be something else other than affordable housing.
And where are you getting that from?
Town
Direct
council.
that from the,
Rory.
You talked to Rory?
I
Just
just,
the-
this is a
we stood
discussion.
up for
It
30
was on the
minutes.
agenda, it was on the agenda, and basically what happened was, we made this proposal about a year ago, longer, and, it was some interest. Mike Maron went out to a couple of the other communities and saw some of the hubs there, and,
On the agenda?
this last Monday,
Oh, I didn't even know that
the
was happening.
28th,
That happened.
the 28th, yeah. Well, I should have looked on Thursday, but I didn't. I think I was traveling or something, but anyway, I kind of missed it, so it was last minute.
Yeah.
But it was added to the agenda. Andy and I and Josh were
Got it. Okay.
No, I wasn't there. I was at the.
We were at
the
the-
next
yeah.
school. Yeah, four of us were at the school.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry. Anyway,
Surplus property.
yeah,
Yeah.
When we went through it all, and when Jay had asked about it. He asked us about the surveys. So this past Monday, it was on the agenda for the.
town council, 28th, it was the 28th of April.
So this
2 days ago.
two
It's-
days ago.
yeah.
Oh,
A week ago.
A week
A week ago, after the meeting.
After the
yeah. So, I think what happened here was, I think they got it on purpose, gave them a great opening, a few flaws in the survey. They dragged their feet, they not in favor of this. Obvious, Jamie told me point blank, it's a freaking mold infested dump, and you shouldn't ever put anything, blah, blah, blah. And, I think Cory was never in favor of it, at least once the affordable housing thing came in, so we lost our support, and over time, my guess is that they could drag it out again. We tried to go back into a survey, which nobody was in favor of doing. Right? And on top of that, we also said, oh, we could go back and look at the economics to see whether this is really feasible, et cetera, and with a short time frame. I just don't think we made our recommendation. We like the idea. They had the fish to fry, and they dropped this until the affordable housing took steam. That's where
Well, the sentiment was, what if it's successful and then we have to shut it down? That's what they were really concerned about. Is that if they love the project and it really worked and thrived, they would have to shut it down.
So let me just, I met with the WVA, Wakefield Association,
Yes.
to get their temperature on it. Mainly the board, and some matters, nobody really shows up to the meetings, never gonna get. Yeah, and honestly, if you went up and down the street and asked people, they would probably, some of them might even ask you what Wakefield School is.
Okay.
But anyways, so they were not in favor of it. They did not want to see that. One was they didn't want to compete with any of the businesses. They weren't even strong about having retail over there. They did say that the biggest thing they kept saying was it really needs at this point to just go away until they decide something. Like talking about taking down South Road. I mean, all the windows are broken. It's feet.
And the issue is that we heard, Mike and I heard from is school committee does not turn over that building. They don't care about it. They're not going to want to do anything. I'm not going to push them on it. So
Well, it's full
6
of-
weeks or 6
I
months.
think it's because it's full of stuff.
They haven't done anything to
They
it.
filled that with like so much stuff, like big, heavy,
Well, South Road's still full of stuff. There's tires in there.
Tires.
Yeah.
and stuff.
yeah. They have
Walk by
like
it today.
mechanical. They have like big equipment. Remember who went to the store with me? Anybody going to school? Yeah, that's still full, right? Of all that
Yeah, they have a lot of old shop equipment.
old shop
Yeah.
equipment.
A
And
lot of heavy stuff.
I think that's probably part of the reason. Too.
Well, I wonder how much it costs them to store that stuff up on Old Tower Hill Road versus the $100,000 they pay.
I mean, we saw this stuff. It looks like
It should all be thrown out.
destined for the dump anyways.
Yeah.
For the mattresses, I mean. But anyways, back to the WVA. Really quick, they were not strong about the hub. They didn't want to see that. They wanted to see, it was kind of divided. Some people wanted to see housing, and then some people wanted to see a park. They wanted to see some kind of use where it could still get used by the community. Their idea was something that would bring people to town. It would become some destination, but it would kind of just rotate people in and out, try to help.
Yeah.
And then the other people were, we
There is a
need the
petition.
housing, and that housing will feed Main Street and the
The signatures for it's become park.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
There's a town, yeah. So
Yeah, I've heard
So the
some-
survey dead then.
Yeah.
Correct.
the
However,
survey is not dead. As long as we don't attach it to the Wakefield School, we can deploy a survey to gather information. That's where we left it with Jamie. Jamie's like, as long was removed, if you recall.
Right, I
They just
remember.
don't want Wakefield School associated with the survey. And then Rory was asking what type of information will we learn from them, and getting a pulse on how many remote workers we have and the appetite for small businesses and entrepreneurs looking for micro space.
I think that's valuable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, at the end of the day, it's not under, I mean, all of the reasons why it doesn't make sense are correct. You know, I mean, like, there's a lot of hurdles to jump through to turn the school into what we've been talking about. So I think the idea of what we're talking about, whether it makes sense, I think doing the survey to take that temperature to then eventually showcase to somebody else with another property or just having it available makes sense. So,
Yeah.
So that's one thing survey-wise. The other thing we could do is we could go to URI, talk to the dean over there, it's College of Engineering, when I brought up that we had surplus properties. I said, we were thinking of making an incubator. He said, well, we don't always do the incubator space. I don't know if it's just being nice or they really always need it, but I read the paper. They get grants all the time to start new research projects and maybe they need the space. So I'd leave that. I'm happy to go over and talk about that.
Or even like then identify a possible space for something like this
yeah,
in town.
it's kind of the ship is sailing as to what the intent is. And you have to understand from the town council's perspective, doing anything that doesn't show that they're trying to get affordable housing is not a good
And
position.
they paid a consultant to come in.
Yeah, and consultants, and within their proposal for that space does have commercial, so there's still the intent could be something like this next in the future.
Brought up that this could be a segue to that, but that wasn't heard. I don't feel like it was perceived that whatever was put there could be a segue into that commercial space.
Yeah, because they're the only thing.
Well, they
The only thing they're concerned about is putting something out into the community that then makes a bunch of people react saying that the town council doesn't focus on affordable housing. That's all they're worried about. That's what Rory's position 100%. He wants to be like affordable housing and they want to push this through. It's going to be rightfully so. There's not much we can do.
Push for
But the last meeting we were at, I mean, none of the projects actually were on the red. The numbers didn't work.
They're not providing any affordable housing.
So they're a long way away from those projects getting.
Let's 50 entry, like 50 entry. It's not affordable. So the
Well, there's a
Around here.
differentiation. The good news that I found in the conversation is that they are referring to it from a workforce housing perspective. Looking at scalable, there's affordable, but then there's also the need for somebody might work at County Hospital that could afford $550,000. You can't buy. There's nothing on the market right now. It's $550,000.
The numbers
So-
didn't work. So affordable housing, definitely.
Well, there could be ways to make that work depending upon how the town reacts to it and then how the state reacts to it to then offset those.
So
those
what
losses.
AMI is the affordable? Is it 60%? Is it 80%? 550, that's 100?
Do you know the number?
They're looking at something that could be below 80%. They're saying mixture.
But when we say affordable, is that below 80 or below 60?
Brian, do you know the
So low income, you're talking 30 or 40% AMI. Affordable housing is 60 up through 80, and then workforce housing is usually 80 through 120.
Yeah. So where does the 550 come in on that scale?
So there's a shortfall in the economic model to pay for the development.
Right.
You gotta backfill that with grants or tax credits or something. One other way to do it is to sell off some of the property as market rate and use the profit from that
Yep.
to pay for the infrastructure like the sewer extension into South Road
Right.
or whatever else you have to do. So there has to be something to patch that shortfall from some source. And unfortunately, 6 opportunities for projects like this left, right, and sideways. And today,
Not
that's
fast. Yeah.
just not the case. So the ability to rely on grant to patch that gap is getting more and more.
Tom, I think the other concern is too, right, when you say affordable housing, workforce housing, you have to be careful, especially in this community, because you have URI students. And I said this at the council meeting during that thing, is they technically, all they have to do is work at Burger King and they're in. They're in. So the 1,600 that URI has right now,
Right.
we just filled it for them.
So undergraduate students, if you're being carried on your parents' tax return, you don't qualify for
No disagreement, right? But you're talking undergrads that are 21, 22. If they're on a tax return, they could be in there.
But at the end of the day, if they're working in the community and they are dropping anchor full time in the community, then so be it. Like that's.
I don't disagree.
You know,
I just don't
so-
think you solve.
I'll note that even the South Kingstown Housing Authority, with their project in Champaign Heights, they typically target the very low income, 30, 40, 50%. Their new project includes units up to 80% because they need the money to fill the gap in their planning.
Yeah.
So there, do you want to add anything else or from your perspective? I think your chairman spoke to the town council, sent them a letter and said that this isn't affordable housing, you know, that it's workforce housing, so, and they're clearly in agreement with that.
Was that the individual that
did.
spoke?
She read her statement.
What's her name?
Bethany Sorrentino.
That's right.
Yes, that's right.
And she gave us the
Blue string.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, how are you gonna call it? Accurate and very direct. That's what she said.
So this time there was some economic analysis of what these units would have to cost in order,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
because that,
Infrastructure.
Just by percentage
A
down
whole
of
millions each project.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll try to go from memory, but Wakefield Element, is Wakefield to the $29 million?
South Road.
All right, South Road was a $29 million project in total. They would have 22 units of market rate, 11 units at 80%, 8 and 11%. Then taking all the structure cost, reducing it, they would sell the property outright. I forget how much they got for it, close to $1,800,000, something like that, which could offset some of the infrastructure. But typically, a developer would want to have the town covered. When it's all said and done, they would be about $50,000 short per unit. As to what they would have to charge to break even.
They would break even from that property. They would break even if it was market rate. It's not a reduction.
That's right. That's right. If they had it in the market because it was off by, I don't know, how many percent.
And there's a couple $1 million. The 29 was just the cost of $2 million of infrastructure that the consultants in the town would be paying for. So the whole issue, one of the biggest hurdles, is that there's millions of dollars that the town is investing right now, essentially, to clear way to even make it remotely enticing to a developer. Never mind the gaps then on top of that.
So community sentiment is they're giving away public land at a loss to developers, and you never get it back. So once it's gone, it's gone. And right against Saugatuck Park, lose the park, so none of these waterfront. It's going to be the backyard of the homes over there. There's no longer going to be a public park. It'll be a public park for those people over there. So that's like some of the community sentiment I've heard locally about it.
Well, you live right there.
Yeah.
I live right there, so I'm part of that community. Right? But I'm talking to the dog, everybody around, and that's the sentiment.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree. It's true. They're giving away public land at a loss. Our public property.
Yeah.
At a loss to
It's
try to
market.
entice somebody to build a home.
Yeah, right.
but
which is what you have to do. I think what it ultimately comes down to in the trap that
No
they're stuck in now is that all three properties are now in one report talking about housing, and
they just
Said
brought,
this-
did they bring them on board more?
but now from my perspective, the council has boxed themselves in because now they're saying they're checking affordable housing or even workforce housing, and now they evaluate 3 properties that the town quote owns for housing, and now they're accountable now to the idea that there's going to be housing on there. Where Wakefield never really seemed to be a good fit for housing.
Right.
And what they should have done was looked at them individually, evaluated what's best for these properties, because now it's into a logjam and it's going to be real hard for them to decide which ones do we buy off first, how much to invest in it, and so the whole thing
Well, they took us
pretty
to,
logjammed.
which one did they say makes the most sense to do?
The old
Watson Farm?
Watson Farm.
Yeah. Which it makes sense over there.
Yeah.
It's in a rural
The
community.
proposals were decent, and they also remarked that they took a lot of public feedback, and they incorporated it in. The really interesting thing about Wakefield Elementary was there used to be a school there,
Yeah.
and it was knocked down, and then they put Wakefield Elementary there. So they proposed a building that looked like the old school, because somebody said, "Oh, I don't know to remember the old school."
2 buildings.
Yeah, and they were going to make 2 of them. They were going to look pretty much like the old school with the some part of the building would be out and then it would be reset in the middle, kind of a thing, with 2 outcroppings or whatever you call them. Anyway, I thought that was all interesting. I still don't see where they're going to. I don't think this helps them with affordable housing.
But you know what? One of the variables, there's multiple variables, right?
Yeah.
But one of them is increasing the density. And I know that there's sentiment against that. That makes the economic more favorable.
Right, and I proposed that they would cut out some of the damn parking and maybe they could get a little more density. Right?
If they lose the commercial, that eats up a lot of parking.
That's right, but then I tell them,
These are all trade-offs.
yeah, exactly. So, and then your point, your chairman, Bethany said, not only is it not affordable, she said, why are we looking at this as a for-profit model? Haven't we considered, Habitat or somebody taking the project on? To me, I think it's just an exercise, right? It's just a model to see what the levers are and what you have to do to the pricing. It's not saying that we're going to go get a developer. And the comment there was also that Habitat for Humanity said we've never made a profit in any of the projects we've ever done. We lose money, right? So that was another.
Scale, I think, was the other issue, right? The scale of the project.
Right.
Right. It's not a onesie-twosie project.
Yes.
You're
Right.
talking,
To
on the road, you're talking 44 homes.
Right.
And
And infrastructure. And
Yeah.
they don't do all that.
Well,
Yeah, there was some on the board of health as well. There's gonna be a 60 house, they've got a property in Wesley that dealing with town and all of that, is gonna be 60 homes.
He's told
That's
us
great.
that, they 40, 50 pretty regularly. But anyway,
I think the point. I mean, the point is a little unclear as to what the town council exactly accomplished with that whole exercise, because
They just want
a
to
lot
get,
of really,
real numbers.
that's right.
yeah, but the numbers aren't even real though. So
But they left it with, we'll put some real numbers on it. Come back.
yeah,
Now that we had the talk.
and that's out of scope. So no additional cost.
Yeah.
It seems it seems to me that there's. I don't really know exactly what the outcome is, but like what was presented is great. I mean, I agree. It was out. It was well designed. The numbers aren't. I don't think in some of those instances of Brian's, the grants and everything are still where you would have thought they would be. They're viable projects, but the fact of the matter is, what do we do now?
Yeah, that's
Part
the comment.
that's-
Damn it, if we missed by a mile, it would have been an easy decision.
I just don't
right?
see
But
how you get any
we're close enough.
developer that can go in there and, who's going to go in there and private developer.
One of the things we said in one of the the early meetings, when we had those public discussions of the designs. I think members of the Economic Development Committee asked about the kind of financial analysis any developer or investor would be doing. There were two things we thought were missing. That was one. And the other was a serious investigation of who the audience would be for this. What is the workforce? What does the workforce look like in South Kingstown that we would be trying to house? And they didn't address either of those questions before they started this project. I think they wanted, my snarky view is that they wanted to get in with the legislature up in Providence because they're pushing for affordable housing. And this community has been 5% of affordable housing for the entire time I've lived here, which is 40 years. And so we have never done anything to budge that. So I think they saw this as an opportunity to do something. But I think the other thing we said to them that they don't ever seem to pick up on is that if they rezoned the commercial highway, it wouldn't be the town's responsibility to put mixed housing in there. It would be, this would be up to the market, and they could. These are places you wouldn't need all this stuff. You might need to do some infrastructure stuff because you'd want to put some roads in and some parks. You'd want to do. If we're trying to address the question of affordable housing, why isn't it stonewalled for years on that project and reimagining that, which is much more likely to yield a little bit of affordable housing, unlike these projects, which are likely to yield no affordable housing.
By their analysis, they said the density would be
Is it an
highly
affordable
attractive.
project?
They said that,
The medium density,
yeah,
because they gave 3
The
scenarios,
yeah.
would be very attractive to developers. So it wouldn't be a hard sell. Developers want to come,
But it's not.
they think they would.
That's the analysis.
All right, so wrap this one up. You guys in favor of going to URI? I think
I think regardless of the other field, it's hard to drive economics,
yeah.
right? And the economy. And this is what we're doing, right? Affordable housing is great. That's not really our job to determine affordable housing. It's our job to identify opportunities for growth of the economy.
Yeah.
And that's what we were doing with this survey as a temporary hold, at least while the building, when the survey went out, the survey went out a year ago, the building wasn't broken. Today, the building is broken.
No, the building's broken.
The building's broken.
The building is so
Broken.
old.
Had an awesome meeting there about the Tower
Yeah.
Road.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I was like, that was the first community meeting we had there, and it was the last community meeting we had there. And since the kids are just absolutely destroying it, there's probably like 23 broken windows just in the backside. And
So step one, what I was thinking was contact should be coming to these meetings, not coming to these meetings. We have to talk about that too. But Lauren Burgess is the she's the URI Legislative Affairs and Community Relations Coordinator. I would talk to the two of them and see how could we drop this around their community to see what possible adult education, what could we possibly use this building for. Then we go back to the town council.
maybe not in this building. There could be like the centers behind Belmont. There's like an area space.
Well,
I'll just say, let's identify the need for something that could drive the economy, that could create a new industry, that could bring maybe tech, whether it be like the blue industries or it could be technology coming out of Europe, whatever it is. We can support a tech industry, right? Because we don't need all the resources we need is the internet space, right? So we can support maybe something to do technically, whether it be with the blue or the blue industry coming up and all that. So I think it is worth continuing to pursue something. Whether it's at this location at this point, it seems to make sense. The school is not in good shape and it hasn't been turned over, and it doesn't look like anyone's going to invest anything into it.
I think I was thinking we should write a piece, and I didn't know that when I.
Deborah suggested that. She then rescinded that suggestion, but she did suggest that she get this in the news. Deborah said that.
Survey,
But
yes.
then the town council rescinded that as a group. Like, no, don't Riley, don't associate school with that idea. I think the idea itself has a lot of merit that very much help our economy
I do too.
and grow the industry.
Well, I'll rewrite what I wrote.
As private citizens, you know.
Yeah.
Write letters to the
I
narrative.
thought,
I think so. I think that regardless if it's at Wake, like school, the concept is strong, and I think there's a lot of and yeah, it's not the town's responsibility to manage a project like that. I think that's we all agree. And the town is absolutely swamped. I mean, it's on the midnight, right? And they're swamped.
Someone that feels that strong about it should probably do it.
Yeah.
And I'll remind you that, you know, Old Tower Hill Road, it's moving slowly, it is moving forward. It has the potential to create a lot of additional space.
Yeah.
If you did a survey that said there's a lot of interest in this kind of
yeah.
space, it may be something that convinces somebody to tear down a one-story building and go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to be doing more, focusing on. The idea we have for the elementary school is gone. I think what we have to focus on
That'd
is
probably
how do we help market these ideas? How do we get these ideas?
This is a good segue into the Old Tower Hill Road.
I think what we should, I think as it pertains to the agenda item, I think we should address that we want to rework the survey just to remove Wakefield Elementary School. Have it be a general survey about the idea of that kind of space. I think it's pertinent not only to that space, but to development in general to understand the interest or just the volume of remote workers you have to get a sense there. And a part of the survey can apply to, are you looking for a clutter spaces, that type of thing. But you get a temperature on how much volume of remote workers do you really have. Right. Because there's a handful of that matters. So I think we should work that survey.
Top stuff around you are that you'll work on the survey, more generalized, look for and can we let's move on. Let's quickly I was gonna say now we can talk about that. I propose that we look at the commercial space and decide see where it is and whether we should expand that, whether we should put these all together. Yeah, okay. Good.
But I think looking at identifying it, I think is a good thing.
But however, we could dispense with the second item, item 3 here, which is the URI South County Health Survey. We're talking about surveys.
Real quick before we move on, who's doing who is responsible for reworking that?
Survey.
Yeah, I'll be responsible.
Brand
And
has
it's
been-
really just moving the whole sentiment around the elementary school.
Got it, yeah.
And then re-address the question, like, can we make these more relevant now that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
target-
And I think we should plan to publicize it somehow before we do the survey. Good thing to do.
I agree. I was personally as a citizen writing some sort of opinion piece on it, because the need for industry, the need for community is very strong. That area of Wakefield, that not talking about business, but just community in general, that's a community space.
Yeah.
That's the only community space we have. It's remote. It's like directly associated with industry, and I think we even mistake to sell that property away at a loss and lose that opportunity.
Plus, you don't know what's going to come in
Yeah.
there. Right.
Once it's there, it's never changing back. Once we lose it as a public space, it never comes back.
It's true.
And I think for the town council to be responsible for that, I don't think is a good legacy for the town council.
Mm.
They've given away that's the crown jewel of Wakefield, really to the couple of houses. the other properties definitely do, right? They definitely agree. And I think what you're saying, Andrew,
The
just
South
to go,
Road makes way more
makes
sense.
a lot of sense.
Watson,
Still,
they should just do that.
Yeah.
and I think Andrew, what you're saying is they all got grouped together. That's where I think where it got muddy.
Yeah, you're right.
That's not our job as the EDC to recommend
Exactly.
that one way or another. So that's why I think it's an opinion piece that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And there already is other parties that have hundreds of signatures against any development on that to turn it into a park.
Yeah, I was thinking more from the standpoint of utilizing the survey.
yeah.
And what you would put into that for exploring the need community space that are, all that stuff is what I thought we would do.
And I think as the EDC, we could do that. That's not associated to one of these properties.
Right.
Right? Because the
Exactly.
survey that you saw the report, I don't know if it's a year old,
Yeah.
but it's really informational. If it's not attached to the school, it's still super informational. I don't know if you saw the final version of the report, but
So would we have to take, if we did the EDC, would we have to take this back to the town council? Or could we just do it on their own?
And this is general.
the report at the actual
They said if we took out Wakefield, we could do it?
correct.
Okay.
But they still argue it, right? Because that's their right to do that, and they asked them to remove the school and just they were questions. And Jamie said he would work with them. I know he spoke to him after the fact. As long as we're not taking it to the school and disrupting an agenda item for them. Right?
Absolutely.
I think we're
Jamie, or you talked to after?
Yeah, you were talking to.
Yeah.
Him too, but that was in a different meeting. Yeah. But anyway. Okay. Do we want to take on the URI County Health Survey at this point, and then we'll go back to the dashboard?
Did they, weren't we sending both of these
Yes,
surveys?
and both never really talked about the survey. I did tell them that the process should be that we come up with a survey, we pass it by the staff, they put their 2 cents into it, and we go with it. Right? And they said, now we passed on the elementary thing. I am going to try, we should try the URI their approach.
Well, I mean, this is not attached to any property. This is a general temperature on housing and how and why we're making the decisions we're making.
Right.
I think it's important you bring up what Jim said about that survey.
What did he say?
He wasn't interested in supporting URI.
Oh, because he's
thinks
got a
it's
bone with them with their housing.
He doesn't
issues.
understand we're using that as a sample.
Yeah.
Well, it has nothing to do with
Right.
the actual employer. You know what I mean?
So are we ready to go on this?
I thought that's where we,
Good to go?
I thought we were,
one more. Bethany mentioned that there was data. I feel like that's
there
key.
is no, I know,
There was no survey to understand why.
exactly.
That's the point you made. Bethany, who represents the affordable housing, there was no basis
Yeah.
for these decisions.
Right.
That was really where.
We have wasted, the town council has wasted so much capital on this project. By not hiring the kind of consultants they should have. I mean, Union Studio, I think, is great. And they did some pretty figures. But the whole question of just
data.
density and whatever, they needed to, they shouldn't have done this until they had,
Survey.
until they had done.
So we're proposing the survey.
I said, don't you know what the big employers want to have? And they said,
Which that comment was perfectly into the URI stuff.
And the goal of the survey is not to identify what URI and Suffolk want. It's to use their employee base as a sample to create a survey return or data set we can measure against demand. It's just easy access to a sample set of employees. So they're getting hung up on the idea that we're trying to say to them that we're doing it to see what URI wants. That's not what we're doing it.
okay. So how would you like to proceed? Brian, did you get an email from us? We're proposing to go to entities and conduct this
general
Yeah.
survey. If it's a general workforce information survey, that gives you leverage to make decisions.
I just identify how we're sending it.
Yeah, these are sources. I mean,
You can also send it out to other.
Main Street,
Mhm.
right? Just see, like, you know,
Just give it to
what
the
are the chefs doing? What are the chefs up to? What are they, you know, what are the people? But like, I think why isolate? Let's distribute.
And we see that in the overview of the document. I agree. We just need to rebrand it. So
Yeah.
I can make that adjustment.
Can you send that to me? Because I think the only one I have is like the original version. I feel like there have been changes and updates since.
No, the one you attached in the packet is, I think,
Is that the changes that you last changes that you suggested? I think it does.
I think it does. I think it does.
But we can go. We can look into.
So we're rebranding both surveys. Right. One's going to be about the community remote, the existing community remote workforce. I don't know how to rebrand that one yet. We'll think on it.
Okay.
But then actually workforce survey. If you could think of that, you're the way to rebrand that.
Yeah.
And we'll circulate it at your South County Hospital.
So what if this was done just as a group of concerned citizens, having nothing to do with BBC? You're free to do exactly what you want.
I don't think we're going to deny. I don't think once you reframe it, I don't think they're going to get
I
denied.
don't see it being a problem. I kind of want to go rogue.
Yeah,
We can talk
Could my Groucho glasses and mustache.
I think we get better results.
We get better results, yeah.
Better results, but you're not. For the opinion piece, that has to. We don't want to attach the town to it or even the EDC.
Okay. Are you going to send an email to Brian, copy and survey we're going to do this, and put any comments or suggestions?
Should Randy put it in a survey, actual survey, you know, a Google survey? You can do that too.
I think we can keep off that one. Keep that, and your triangle, we'll keep our triangle.
Okay.
Work against it.
So are we good? Are we good? You all
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
whatever we're going to do. Great. So economic dashboard, we want to do kind of an update on that.
Sure. I wasn't here last time. I saw just a few notes on it.
Yes.
I think we're
Go ahead.
Big thing that I think you were here for, Josh, was that it was disclosed to me that prior to my coming on board, the town had a practice of doing a regular annual year-end report for a lot of the information that you are suggesting to the dashboard, and I've been told the town is looking at going back and restarting that process, and I think the question is, does that sort of fill the void that you're looking to create?
Yeah.
Well, he's not looking to create a void.
Yeah. I think so.
He's trying to fill.
Sure.
But I think there also probably, I would guess, going to be some opportunity to leverage the data that's created in that report to reframe it in a way that
is that, and then also to identify if there's gaps and stuff that were not collected to Ryan's point back in January. You know, there's some groups that are collecting information, others that are not. So, again, demonstrate that we need to collect it for.
The other thing is that Josh's version is to be mounted online. And that thing that they did before, they actually did it, which I'm not quite sure if they did. That was a printed report. Yeah, and
Well,
I think
at
it was
this
much
point,
better.
yeah,
I think
I
it would be much better if it was something you could find on the town's website at any time you wanted